All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Annalise Spaziano. I am the Assistant Superintendent of Schools here for East Lyme Public Schools. Welcome to our East Lyme Public Schools Family University. The topic for tonight's presentation is digital accessibility and how we utilize that to support inclusive classrooms. I am joined here this evening by two of my colleagues. We have Shannon Saglio and Gil Gallant. Both of them serve in the role of District Instructional Technology Coach. So Shannon will be talking a little bit about digital accessibility and how it relates to inclusive classrooms at the secondary level. And Gil will talk more about digital accessibility and that supportive nature at the elementary level. Topics that we will explore this evening together at both levels is, Shannon will give us a little bit of a history lesson in terms of how did we get to where we are in the way of creating a digital accessibility plan in East Lyme. And then we'll kind of dive into using digital accessibility tools within the classrooms, what that looks like. We're going to actually provide some demo experiences for you. So we'll actually show you how some of these tools are utilized in the classroom by students, or how they can be, and also how you can support their use at home on the computer. So we'll look closely at Read Write, the Microsoft Immersive Reader, and then we'll look at Kami and translation tools. So at this point in time, I'm going to hand it over to Shannon Saglio, who will talk a little bit about the digital accessibility plan. Shannon?
All right. Well, I'm glad everyone's here tonight. Welcome. I'm Shannon Saglio, the district-wide technology instructional coach. We're excited that this topic is being shared with you tonight, and I wanted to share the journey of how we got here. As you know, the district went one-to-one during the pandemic, and we consumed so much technology at one time. And as we were learning and growing together, our teachers were discovering unique and creative ways that these tools could be used in the classroom. And along with that, as we were supporting students that had accommodations through an IEP or 504 with digital accessibility tools, we began to do a deeper dive into these tools and realize that, you know what, these tools actually could serve an intentional purpose within the general ed classroom. So not just only for accommodations, but it could help lift the work in other ways. And while we were having those discussions, we also realized that that it was going to be a way to create an inclusive classroom, meaning that we have students that need to rely on these tools within the classroom instruction to access the curriculum. But when all students are using these tools in the classroom in meaningful and purposeful ways, it creates an inclusive environment where kids do not feel stigmatized. They feel that they can use these tools with ease and access, and not to be worried about what their peers are thinking. So how do we decided to create a digital accessibility plan. So I had a group come together, and what we did here was we try to work between the special education department and general ed, which I was representing. And so our team members were Vita Rose, who's a high school special ed teacher. We had Sonia Mazzulli, who is a district occupational therapist. And we have Carol Hallisey, who's also a district occupational therapist. And we went in through each tools and we put together a digital accessibility plan for the district. And we're piloting that this year. Now, naturally, everyone knows we had this great outage of October, I like to call it. We had this tech setback. So as much as we wanted to get some of this started earlier in the year, we had to roll back our original plan. So we're starting now with introducing these at the secondary level. We met with our CILs and curriculum fellows, and we decided to talk about how it could be intentionally used. We showed what the tools were with those leaders, and we're going to bring those back to the departments and have teachers think about them in meaningful ways. If you want to go to the next slide, Annalise. So part of that discussion, as I was mentioning, is that we realize that these tools are necessary for some, but there's really great ways that students could use this to lift their own work when they're working independently with digital resources, or it can help lift the work in the classroom if the teacher is trying to help the students with their different assignments. So these are the three main tools that we have that all students have access to. So there's a read-write extension, which works on Google Chrome. There's the Kami extension, which helps with PDF readers. And then there's an alternative, which is part of the read-write program, Orbit Notes. So just in case, sometimes Kami can be a little overwhelming for some kids. So that is a good alternative if there's too much visual distraction on the screen. But we realized that these tools could be used for response, edit, and revision, that you can use a screen reader for editing and revising written work. You can use it for vocabulary if kids are getting stuck with understanding what terms mean on a page. Teachers can use some of the features to help with question and feedback. And then on our right, we list all the different ways that these tools serve as actual accommodations for specific students. So this year we trained the CIL, or we had meetings with the CILs and the curriculum fellows. We're starting to build more capacity and get teachers more familiar with how to use these tools. And our vision is by next year that everyone's really going to be comfortable with this integration. And we are creating a more fluid process for things like accessing digital textbooks for students with accommodations. And we are looking at right now trying to embed some of these strategies within our coaching cycles. Gil works at the elementary teachers, and I'm working with middle school and high school teachers. So this is rolling out this year. Now, elementary, unfortunately, because of that great kind of outage that happened at the beginning of the year with the tech problem, with a number of other initiatives that are happening at the district, we're not quite there yet with doing this full scale, but we're starting to plan those meetings. And another point I want to make with our idea of inclusive learning is that as we start to adopt new resources in the district as part of the curriculum revision cycle, we are looking at digital accessibility as a feature. And I have to say that there's been a lot of advancements made recently where a lot of these tools are built in. You know, for instance, I work with middle school social studies. We brought in a platform called Documents-Based Questions and the DBQ project, and in that platform are a lot of accessibility tools already. So this is taking off. And with the elementary, which Gil will go into a little bit more in a bit, we have platforms like Seesaw, Epic, Wixie, PebbleGo, Nearpod. A lot of them have these inclusive features already built right into the platform. So that will definitely help lift that work. For kids that need it within the classroom, but there's very creative ways that it can be used for all kids. So that's the overview of kind of where we're going. So we have a digital accessibility plan. We're working on increasing PD, getting teachers familiar with the tools and how to use them in the general ed class. So not just seeing it as just a tool for kids with accommodations, but we know that these are vital for kids with accommodations. And we want to make sure that those things are working for everybody as needed. So I'm going to show you just a quick demo with, we'll start with read-write. And I'll share my screen. Okay, so with read-write, this is an extension. So any student that, if you're opening their Chrome browser at home, there's this little puzzle piece. And if they're signed into their school account, they will see that there are certain extensions that are automatically pushed out to all students. And if they want that extension to be shown on their toolbar, because they're going to use it frequently, you can press this little pin and it will pin it to the taskbar. So you can see that I have some frequent tools that I use up here, and it's located and easily accessible. So typically a teacher may, so I'm focusing on secondary, middle school, and high school. And, you know, frequently teachers may share a digital resource, ask kids to read it, answer questions about it, analyze it, use it for a research project. But it can be overwhelming for certain kids. So we are making sure that all things are inclusive within the classroom. So with the read-write app, any student can use the extensions, but let me show you how it can be used for everybody in a meaningful way. All right. Typically, I don't know if you guys noticed, but a lot of web pages, news sites, it's visually overwhelming. There's ads, there's a lot of media on there. So when we're actually asking kids to like focus on like the text, it can become very distracting. So this is the toolbar for read-write. And one of my first things that I like to do when I'm using it on the web is to go to the icon that says simplify page. And when you simplify the page, what it'll do is it will take it and put it into a simpler format as it's intended. It takes away all the visual distractions. Now, a point, as you can see, it's loading. The more graphics or media that are on a page, the longer this piece may take. So I already went ahead and simplified it. Oh, it didn't say. Okay, well, just take a second then. So what it's doing is it's taking out all of that. And then when it loads, it's going to be just a nice screen just with the text. And then I'm going to show you how you can use some of the tools to make that a little easier to use. This is something I recommend for everybody. I've been in a lot of different classes, or even myself, where you like assign a page because it was a really good reading, but there's just so much on it. And where's the focus? And I feel like what ends up happening is the kids get distracted. They're not really attending to what they need to. And it's also harder sometimes in that format to use the actual screen readers if a kid does need to use that screen reader, because what ends up happening is like, it may pick up some of the other media on the page, and then it creates, it's just not very fluid for the student to read. And of course, it's going to take like super long tonight because I'm doing a demo. So I'll go back here. Other features on ReadWrite, if you are typing into a Google Doc or a Google Slide, there's predictive text for kids that really struggle with like word recall. Or if sometimes if kids just get stuck, you can use that. This feature here, hover speech, can cover over, and then you'll, like, if you click this, it will hover over the text and it will read. Well, actually, I think it's delayed because of the simplify.
Physical description. Unlike most tortoises that have hard, domed shells, the African pancake tortoise has a
there's built-in dictionaries. All kids can benefit from that, so they can just highlight a word and just make sure that they're understanding that word. They can use the dictionary feature there, and it will look it up. It will also read it to the student, so that can be helpful. For documents,
the African pancake tortoise,
that's
also known as the crevice.
Always take it off of that. I actually prefer to just use the other method where you highlight and play, just for that reason. If your mouse goes anywhere on the screen, it will just start playing. Another tool that could work is the screenshot reader. So let's say if you have a picture or an image and you're looking at something for science class, you can, and it's not working with the screen reader, you can highlight the word and then it will turn it into a readable format and play it back for you. So that can always
fun facts.
And sometimes, like I was saying, like, some kids may encounter a word they just don't know how to pronounce, and this helps all kids. Maybe I'm doing a social studies class and we're looking at some names of some countries, and a lot of times it can be accurate, but as somebody noted, a parent noted earlier, it's not always accurate. Like, so for instance, in history, when the screen reader reads a date, it's going to read it like a numeric number instead of like a year. So they're not perfect. The tech tools are never perfect. They're trying to improve it, but that's why it's important to not just rely on tech tools. There's other things that we need to be doing within our classrooms, but this can help. Some kids also could benefit from using a masking tool. Like if they get distracted or just need to stay focused, you can use this screen masking here to kind of go through, and that could help also. There's dictation, talk and type. So if there's a document or something like that, you can use it for that. Let's see if the simplify worked. Still not. So simplify, just to let you know, what it will do is it will take the page, make it black and white, take out all the graphics. You can increase the font, you can increase spacing if you need to. There's a lot of features that you can use there just to kind of like, just not have all of the distractions on that page. You can use highlighting tools. So if students are doing research in a class, let's say you realize over here that this is going to be a great fact, you can highlight that, and at the end you can collect the highlights. It will export it to a Google Doc, and then they can have one page with all their research on it, and then it puts a link to this web page so the student knows where the citation came from. So it's a nice way to help support some research. Teachers can also create vocabulary lists off of this. Like, so if I, found a good reading online, but I'm seeing that there's some words we really have to cover, and I want them to use those words frequently, I can generate a vocabulary list, on the teacher side. That's not so much for the kids, but I think that's a great tool sometimes for teachers. But like everything else, you really have to look at it. Did the vocabulary word meet that definition that is intended for the course in the way that you want the kids to understand it. So like we're saying, we recognize technology is not perfect, but it can do some pretty impressive things to help students improve. So you can simplify a page, you can use text to speech, which helps kids with decoding and fluency, or it can be used for all to help read written responses back. So that's a powerful thing I've been using with in some of my coaching cycles. So I'm working with students at the middle school, and we're currently working on some historical writing, some essays. So after they write their introduction paragraph, the kids can use read write to highlight and play back the what they wrote, and they can then hear any mistakes that they had made, and they can go back and edit. So not everyone has the benefit of having somebody around to read their responses to them, but in this way they can sometimes hear the mistakes or hear what their writing sounds like. They have great ideas, but it might be challenging to always get it correct when they write. So it's just an editing tool. And you know what? It's interesting that these tools are taking off. So for any adults here, if you at home, have Microsoft Office through your work, if you right click, these features are built in now to Microsoft Office as well. So with that, I'll segue because this is still loading. Maybe by the end, I could do a big reveal of, hey, here's Simplify. This just might be because of the Zoom and because I'm home, that maybe it's just a little slower in that capacity. I also want to point out that we do have 2 browsers that kids have access to. So sometimes maybe there's something's going on with Chrome that day and it's not working as well. We can open up a lot of our resources using Edge Chromium. So Edge Chromium is Microsoft's version of Chrome built into Edge Chromium. So this is that same page that we were looking at for the Smithsonian National Zoo. So we're doing some research on the African pancake tortoise. There's a couple of things to note. So if you just right click on here, you see all the accessibility tools built into Chrome. So again, we might have a student who is a multilingual learner and needs this page to see some of this in their home language first, and then come back to English to really kind of grasp the concepts. They can translate. You can do read alouds. We have open and immersive reader, which is also here. So Microsoft has tool. If you just want a screen reader, you can do that and highlight, and it will. Sorry, my mouse went crazy. You can
Physical description.
Highlight and it will read, and then you can control the
Unlike most
here. And then what we can do too is if you if you right click, you can open it in immersive reader. And for teachers, there's a couple of things like, you can actually teach parts of speech here using, the feature here. For some kids, if they're still struggling and, trying to really get their decoding down and really benefit from seeing some words split into syllables, you can do that. For kids with visual impairments, you can increase the text size. For kids, and these are just preferences too, like some kids, let's talk about screen time and, the glare, sometimes putting a gray page theme on, rather than having just white screen looking at you. If you're looking at the screen multiple times a day, kids can change the preference of their backgrounds. So those are some pretty interesting features there too. It also has a picture dictionary for some kids that need that. This would be for younger kids. And then translate, or even sometimes for multilingual learners. And you can translate a whole page as well. So they have pretty robust menu here. And then you can translate the whole page. So that's another thing that's built right into the Chrome Edge browser. So there is like a backup to some of these tools, and this, works on anything that's digital, and it will show you if the web page works with the technology. You'll see it right here. You'll see read aloud. You'll see immersive reader built right in. If it doesn't work with immersive reader, you won't see the icon in the browser. If it does, you might just have read aloud. The read aloud works on almost all of those. But when we're talking about, just the big picture here, we have different ways that teachers can use this for everybody. So we can use it for editing and revising. We can use it for vocabulary. We can use it for clarifying information. So small little tricks like this as you're going through these resources. And we just put on the slideshow just the features of all of them and which applications they have. But there are meaningful ways. So I started that today actually in a class. Like I said, we were working on the essay. I showed them how to use read write. I showed them how the dictionary feature works. I showed them how to play back their writing. And we had some kids actually starting to practice that. And just by those little gestures, you're sending a message to other kids that it's okay to use these tools if they need them and they don't feel like they're standing out. So now I'm going to pass it over to Gil to talk about elementary level.
Hello, everyone. I'm glad you could make it tonight. I'm going to talk a little bit about CAMI, but I do want to point out, like Shannon said, a lot of the elementary tools already have these accessibility features built right in. So when you think of Seesaw, Pebble Go, and Epic, they all have read aloud features, video recording features, even text to speech. So I'm going to share my screen and kind of walk you through a CAMI document that we've been using with third graders. But in the past, this document was generally, kind of assigned to children, and they were kind of expected to read it. So what can happen now is the teacher can take the document and assign it in CAMI either through Seesaw or Google Classroom, and the whole class can access this document in ways that they need it. So just like in Read Write, this document can be read aloud.
Fun and games just as they are for today's children. Games and sports were...
Obviously, if you don't like the language, the voice, you can change the voice over here or the speed of the language to make it more to your liking. When I worked with some kids, they read the whole document that way and then went back and read it to themselves. Other kids chose to only read parts that they didn't understand, whatever worked best for them. The other feature that we see here is a highlighting markup feature where they can take the text, highlight either words that they don't know or don't understand, or if the teacher says find words that you'd like to look up in the dictionary, whatever, they can use the highlighting feature and then maybe go back and use the dictionary to figure out what those words mean. So as they click on a word, it'll just tell them, just like in Read Write, they play it.
Imitate someone or their actions or words, especially in order to entertain or ridicule.
Now, using this with classrooms, we also had the kids not only highlight words, but then kind of make comments about what those words meant to them. So in a way, teaching the vocabulary through the document, also allowing the teacher to collect that information, because once it's assigned in CAMI, the teacher can go back and see what every child did, how they worked on it, what the comments they made, and the teacher can even comment back directly. So over here, we have a comment tool. The children can either write a comment, do a voice comment, whatever they want. So for example, they could click here and then say, could say that they want to, make a voice comment and record that comment or type a comment in there and then just save it. So the teacher knows what they looked up, what it meant, and send that, back to the teacher. A lot of times kids might want to draw in a document or use a tool so they can circle or write, add information. They might even on the side do that. It also allows them to add media. So if they're searching for a picture or something, to add information to the text. So there's so many possibilities that kids could use here. And part of what's nice about CAMI is that it goes directly back to the teacher so they can see exactly what the child do, and the teacher can also make comments to the child, but it's personal and between them, not the whole class being shared everywhere. So we've had this so far being used in the classrooms, and have found it very successful in the classrooms who use it. Something I did today just for fun with a second grade class was to have them do their math facts and write their answers right in CAMI. So this can also be read or highlighted and documented, but the kids can also turn the camera on themselves and read it.
2 + 7 = 10. 4 + 3 = 7.
So the teacher could see how the child responded, what they were doing when they were doing the number line or whatever, and see what their errors were, and then make a comment back. Check the first one, 2 + 7, you said was 10, use the number line to check your work, that kind of thing. So it does allow a whole bunch of possibilities, not just for students who have issues, but all kids in a classroom, allows them to access the document and have more ways of learning and engaging in that document. Okay. The other thing I wanted to show you was the Google Translate tool. This is the tool that we've been using a lot on iPads with children in the district or on their computer devices. So obviously they can transfer speech, you can transfer a document or even a website. So all they have to do is click on there and it starts translating into their native language, and they can stop or listen to it and then play it.
Hacer es hacer clic allí y comienza a traducirse a su idioma nativo.
So that's like an instantaneous response, and they can do that for the teacher talking or if someone in their classroom is talking. We also have those language supports exist also in Lexia Core 5. They can have language in their native language, which can give them the directions again or the words in the Core 5 activity. There's also Lexia English, which is an ELL program, which is used for kids who don't have a lot of language background in English and it's hard for them to do Core 5, so they might do Lexia English to start. So there's a whole bunch of accessibility tools and features in the elementary level that teachers are starting to use. And now as we're doing our coaching cycles, going in, showing the children and teachers at the same time how these tools can really make their job easier. Teachers can now differentiate instruction and kind of have personal one-on-one relationships with kids through a text or through even their own writing. So if children write something, just like in Read Write, it can be read in Kami or these documents, and then they can hear what changes or revisions they might need to make. So it's an incredible time to be a student and a teacher. Thank you.
And Annalise, I just wanted to add, just because Gil was focusing with Kami on elementary, Kami is definitely available at the middle school and high school. And as Gil alluded to before, built right into Google Classroom. Anytime you upload a PDF, and that's really when you're using Kami, you can make it an assignment. So anytime I have a PDF, I can just push it out to the whole class as a Kami assignment. So again, kids that need it, have it. Other kids, there could be other ways they're using it. You know, I did that today. We had a writing graphic organizer. So we put it right in Google Classroom, and all kids were able to then use that Kami feature. And then those that had very specific needs were able to use that in addition to how we had posted that assignment in Kami. So just to show that inclusivity piece of how this could be applied within the general ed classroom.
And what's nice, it does save automatically into the Google folders and the Google Drives, and the kids can always go back and work on it again. They need that extra time, so it's got a lot of that. Kids don't have to worry, oh, I didn't save my work. It's got a lot of it is kind of automatic, and they don't have to fret about those kinds of things that do tend to upset kids in technology.
Thanks so much to Shannon and Gil for providing us with this overview of some of these really amazing tools that do in fact provide accessibility opportunities for all of our students in the classroom. I will just, I guess I'll close up by saying, technology is ever advancing, and here we continue to try to stay current with practices and provide access to our students on the tools that we think are going to be most beneficial. There's so much out there, and so we've really made the deliberate decision to focus on the ones we think are going to provide the best support for our students without overwhelming them. And you can see just from the few that we highlighted to the audience this evening, how it can really change the game for some of our students and accessing. But we know these tools are open and useful for everyone. And one of our most important factors in utilizing these tools within the classroom is to normalize their use. They don't necessarily have to be for students who have them specifically written into IEPs and 504s. Our goal is to make them usable and accessible to all students in the core and model to teachers and students on how they can be utilized to enhance the teaching and learning process. So with that said, thank you for all coming. I'm going to stop the recording now so that we can open it up to question and answers from anybody who might have a question. So let me just stop here.